Hey, there we go. What's good, everybody? It is Zerilath. Oh, why am I all tight up in the hair? There we go. What's good, guys? Let's go. We got 19 pages tonight. I didn't blast this at all. I did a whole bunch of stuff to prep for this leading up to it because I took my time with things and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to go live until a little bit later in the day. But anyway, what's up, Pasta Spliff? All right, so that was a band called Ex Deo, and they wrote I think they wrote a song for each of the four emperors of the four emperor year or something to that effect. And Vitellius is the name of this song. That's the name of the emperor. He's one of the successors of Nero, and he was an interferer in Judea. I'm not sure if he was exactly part of the Jewish war, but he is a part of Judean affairs, and he died in 69 A.D. And so we're kind of in that pocket, if you will. So anyway, I want to move through this quickly, and I've got some other brutal bangers for you coming up a little bit later. So, Josephus, governor of Galilee. So I believe this is the point where Flavius is talking about himself. After the disastrous defeat of Cestius, many prominent Jews fled from the city like swimmers from a sinking ship. You know what, guys? Give me 1 minute. All this prepping, like, I'm so tight that I didn't even... I mean, I spend time cooking. I cook for myself, motherfuckers. Hang on. It was a gym day, so I went hard on the arms, a little bit on the legs, and I got to restock the protein. Woo! So I really had to cook because I really needed to put the good stuff in me. Okay. Costobar, with his brothers Saul and Philip, son of Jasimus, the commander of King Agrippa's army, slipped out of the city and went over to Cestius. But their companion in the siege of the royal palace, Antipas, declined to flee and was put to death by the insurgents, as I shall describe later. Cestius sent Saul and his friends, at their own wish, to Nero in Achaia, to acquaint him with their own plight and to lay the blame for the war on Florus. Nero's anger against Florus would, he hoped, lessen the danger to himself. At this time, the people of Damascus, learning of the destruction of the Roman force, were eager to exterminate the Jews in their midst, as they had had them cooped up in the gymnasium for a long time now. Taking this precaution as a result of suspicion, the task appeared perfectly simple, but they were afraid of their own wives, who had almost all gone over to the Jewish religion, so that their chief anxiety was to keep them in the dark. Right? So, like, it's very interesting. Like, Judaism has been a thing that involves converts for a long time. And there's a distinction between those converted Jewish, right? And I think that many of these people are not considered Goyim because I think we're talking about other Semitic people. Or possibly, this is the Judea Jewish thing, meaning that these guys are all possibly of the 12 tribes, but the Judeans are the only ones that allege that they are the true tribe of Judah. You see, right? And so this may not be the same thing as like a Goyim's conversion, right? This would fall more under some of the more understood ideas of being in or out with God in the Bible, in the Old Testament. Accordingly, they fell upon the Jews, crowded together and unarmed, and though they numbered 10,500, they slaughtered them all in 1 hour without any trouble. Those who had pursued Cestius returned to Jerusalem, where by force of persuasion they won over those who still favored Rome, and at a mass meeting in the temple appointed additional generals for the army. They chose Joseph, the son of Gorion, and the high priest Ananus to take full charge of all arrangements in the city, with special responsibility for increasing the height of the walls. Simon's son Eleazar had in his possession the Roman booty and the money captured from Cestius, together with the vast public funds, but they did not put him in charge of affairs, as they saw that he had dictatorial tendencies and that his devoted followers were behaving like an armed bodyguard. Gradually, however, the shortage of money and Eleazar's jugglery induced the people to submit to him completely. For Idumea, they chose 2 other generals, Jeshua, son of Saphas, one of the chief priests, and Eleazar, son of the high priest Neus, the then governor of Idumea. Niger, a native of Perea, east of Jordan, and therefore known as the Perean, was instructed to accept orders from these 2, nor did they neglect the rest of the country. Joseph, son of Simon, was sent to take command at Jericho. Manasseh in Perea, John the Essence in the toparchy of Thama, to which were attacked Lydda, Joppa, and Emmaus. The districts of Gophna and Acrebeta were put under the command of John, son of Ananias, while both parts of Galilee were assigned to Josephus, son of Matthias, together with Gamala, the strongest city in that area. So this is a different Josephus, because this is not Josephus is his last name, right? And so Flavius is his first name. So Flavius Josephus. So this guy's last name is this particular governor's first name, because he would effectively be Josephus Matthias if we were putting that together, I would assume. Because I'd imagine he'd want to disclose his full name, and this was probably his full name. Each of these generals carried out the task assigned to him with all the energy and ability he possessed. Josephus, on arriving in Galilee, gave first priority to securing the goodwill of the inhabitants, knowing that this would serve him in very good stead, even if some things went wrong. He saw that he would win the support of the leading men if he shared his authority with them, and of the people in general if he issued his instructions mainly through the channel of well-known residents. So he chose 70 elderly men, the most sensible he could find in the country, and put them in charge of the whole of Galilee, appointing also 7 magistrates in every town to settle petty quarrels, on the understanding that major disputes and cases of homicide should be referred to himself and the 70. When he had made these rules for settling the internal problems of the cities, he turned his attention to their safety from external foes, realizing that the Romans would invade Galilee first. He fortified the most defensible positions, Jotapata, Berseb, Salem, Cafreco, Jaffa, and Sigof, Mount Tabor, Tarichaea, and Tiberias. Next, fortifying the caverns near Lake Gennesareth in Lower Galilee, and in Upper Galilee, the rock called Achaberon, Seth, Jamnith, and Mero. In Golanitis, he strengthened the defenses of Seleucia, Soganea, and Gamala. Only in Sepphoris were the citizens invited to build a wall on their own responsibility. Josephus saw that they had ample means and that their enthusiasm for the war needed no stimulus. There you go. In the same way, Gischala was fortified by John, son of Levi, on his own responsibility at the request of Josephus. The building of all the other strongholds was personally supervised by Josephus, who directed the work and himself lent a hand. He also raised in Galilee a force of over 100,000 young men, equipping them all with old weapons that he had got together. Josephus knew that the invincible might of Rome was chiefly due to unhesitating obedience and to practice in arms. He despaired of providing similar... Wait a minute. He despaired of provide... Hold on a minute. He despaired of providing similar instructions, demanding, as it did, a long period of training. But he saw the habit of obedience resulted from the number of their officers, and he now recognized his army on the Roman model, appointing more junior commanders than before. Junior command, in other words, this is like new sheriff in town, you give him free range to deputize. Right? So he's got enough people that are interested in participating, right? He's got some fucking patriots at his disposal here. Some people that really are into it. All right? So that's very promising. That's very promising because there's right, so the odds are these guys would be probably striving for the quality of the thing, right? So anyway, he divided soldiers into different classes and put them under decurions and centurions, those being subordinates to tribunes, and the tribunes to commander of larger units. He taught them how to pass on signals, how to sound the advance and the retreat, how to make flank attacks and encircling movements, and how a victorious unit could relieve one in difficulties and assist any who were hard pressed. He explained all that contributed to toughness of body, of fortitude of spirit. Above all, he trained them for war by stressing Roman discipline at every turn. They would be facing men who, by physical prowess and unshakable determination, had conquered almost the entire world. He would feel certain of their soldierly qualities even before they went into action, if they were refrained from their besetting sins of theft, banditry, and looting, from defrauding their countrymen, and from regarding as personal gain the misfortunes of their closest friends. For if those who went to war had a clear conscience, victory was certain. But men whose private life was smirched had not only human enemies but God to contend with. To this effect he exhorted them continually. The army he had raised and trained for battle numbered 60,000 foot and 250 horse, together with the troops he trusted most, about 4,500 professional soldiers. So right here, he's made this note up here. Smirched had not only human enemies, but God to contend with, right? In proper paganism, that's not your relationship with the deity, right? You don't, you know that your deity knows that you are operating under honor codes, you're operating under certain values, and you don't betray those values, those qualities that are the qualities of that god, right? Thor doesn't care who I punch in the face. Thor leaves that up to my agency. He is not some fucking possessing spirit. But my avatar is modeled as such. What matters is do I conduct myself in a manner that the god would, including their understanding of things, their sense of what's valued, what's a threat to those values. That's a big part of Thor. It's just like, are you threatening my values? I value this thing. Are you threatening it? Get the fuck out of my party, Loki. Get the fuck out of my house. That's Thor, right? He had also 600 picked men as a personal bodyguard. Maintenance for all except the professionals was easily obtained from the towns, as only half the conscripts from each town served with the colors, the rest staying behind to supply them with rations. Thus one party was detailed for combatant duty, the other for fatigues. Those who provided the food were repaid by the combatants with security. So, in short, this would be good governance, right? Like, if it seems like because they're lucky enough that these people are down with the Roman way, it's just like, yeah, man, we'll fight like the Romans. Look, dude, it's all right. We believe in hard work. You can take our money. We're not luxurious people and whatnot. I don't know. Whatever's going through their head in the conversation they're having over there, their feelings, their attitudes, their things they believe in, right? While Josephus was busy organizing the defense of Galilee, there appeared on the scene a plotter from Gischala, the son of Levi, John by name, the most unprincipled trickster that ever won ill fame by such vicious habits. He began as a poor man, and for a long time his propensities were held in check by lack of means. But being a ready liar and clever at winning the trust of his victims, he made a virtue of deceit and practiced it on his closest friends. And while parading his humanity was prepared to murder anybody for his money. There was no limit to his ambition, but his hopes were nourished by the contemptible misdemeanors. He started as a solitary bandit, but later found associate for his ventures, a handful at first, but more and more numerous as he grew more successful. He was careful to accept no one who would give in easily, and chose men for their physique, sticking power, and military experience, till he got together a gang 400 strong, consisting mainly of outlaws from Tyre and the neighboring villages. With their help, he plundered all Galilee and preyed upon the masses, distracted as they were by the imminence of war. He also pictured himself as general or something greater still, and only shortage of money kept him down. When he saw that Josephus was delighted with his energy, he first persuaded him to entrust him with the rebuilding of the walls of his hometown, thereby enriching himself at the expense of the well-to-do. Next, he contrived a remarkable piece of roguery, pretending that he wished to save all the Jews in Syria from using oil from non-Jewish sources. Now, they're talking about sacrament, oil of the sacrament, those kinds of oils. But that sentence in modern context is damning. Think about that sentence in context of crude oil. He obtained leave to deliver it to them at the frontier. Then he concerned the available supplies, paying Tyrian currency worth 4 Attic drachmas from 35 gallons and reselling at 8 times that price. As Galilee is renowned for its olives and the harvest had been exceptional, John, by exploiting his monopoly and supplying large quantities wherever there was a shortage, amassed untold wealth, which he promptly used to injure the man who had put this commerce in his hands. So this guy effectively, he had like gold mine dropped on his lap. It's just like, here's some awesome pro-Roman people. Here's some real like good economic growth, some fertile land. Just he's capable of doing it. This is very interesting. This is very interesting watching, seeing this operation. Supposing that if he brought Josephus down, he would himself become master of Galilee. He ordered the members of his gang to put still more vigor into their raids in the general turmoil that would follow. If the governor went to the rescue, he could be ambushed and finished off. If he failed to deal with the gang, he could be slandered to the people of the country. Finally, he had long been spreading a rumor that Josephus was betraying the country to the Romans and devising many similar expedients to bring him down. All right. At this time, some young men from the village of Dabaritha, members of the guard stationed in the Great Plain, waylaid Ptolemy, chief minister of Agrippa, and Bernice, and robbed him of all his baggage, which included a large quantity of expensive clothing, a number of silver goblets, and 600 gold coin. That's it? Nothing, like he didn't intercept any secret letters or nothing like that, nothing, just money? Unable to dispose of the loot secretly, they brought it all to Josephus at Tarichaea. He condemned their violence to the king's servants and deposited the stolen goods with the chief citizen of Tarichaea, Aeneas, intending to take the first opportunity of restoring them to their owners. This was a most dangerous thing to do, for the robbers were furious at receiving no share of the loot, and realizing that Josephus meant to present the king and queen with the fruits of their labor, they hurried off to the villages at night and everywhere denounced Josephus as a traitor. Okay, so they're spreading an ugly little rumor because they went and did some unsolicited banditry in the name of the governor. And then the governor's like, you motherfucker, you don't loot this guy. Not this fucking guy. You get nothing. They could have asked him, hey, who don't I loot? They could have asked if they were going to bother. If this is decorum that's allowed, they should have gone to the governor first with a plan. Maybe even a setup. Maybe like, hey, we'll be tax collectors for you. Hint, hint, wink, wink, say no more. Right? We can set up a road tax. How do you feel about that, Governor? You want to make some extra cash? And we'll have one guy who's trouble on the road. And he's the reason why there's a road tax. And we're the guys that take the tax. And he's the guy who's in trouble. And then he's the excuse for why we need a tax. And because he starts looting you, you save him from the looter who's secretly working for you. And then you're just like, okay, you got to pay a road tax. There, the easy grift. I think the police do it all the time. Or at least they used to till we caught on. They further put the neighboring cities in an uproar, so that when day broke, 100,000 armed men gathered to attack him. The crowd packaged the hippodrome at the Tarichaea and filled the air with yells of rage, some clamoring to stone the traitor, others to burn him alive. The fury of the mob was whipped up by John, backed by Jeshua, son of Saphias. This is just another Jeshua that's out there, right? Terrified by the huge crowd out for blood, fled with the exception of 4 men. He saw himself alone in the midst of a howling mob, showed no trace of fear. He sprang forward, his clothes rent and his head sprinkled with ashes. I don't know what it means for your clothes to be rent. Was he renting his clothes? Was he a slave? He sprang forward, his hands behind him and his sword. Sorry, he keeps jumping on me. Sword dangling from his neck. Okay, Seeing this, his friends, especially the Tarachaeans, were sorry for him, but the country folk and those from the neighborhood who resented his rule heaped abuse on him, insisting that he should instantly produce the public money and admit his compact to betray them. For they had gathered from his appearance that he would not deny any of the things they suspected, and that it was in order to obtain pardon that he had groveled thus abjectly. But the real purpose of this self-abasement was to prepare the way for a stratagem by which he would induce his enraged critics to quarrel among themselves. He promised to give a full explanation of the actions that had angered them, and when he was given leave to speak, he began. I had no intention of either returning this money to Agrippa or of lining my own pockets. I trust I shall never treat your enemy as my friend to turn the country's loss to private again. But I saw that your city of Tarachaea stood more in need of defense than other cities, and that it could not build walls for lack of funds, and fearing that in Tiberias and other places people had their eyes on these spoils. I intend to keep the money and say nothing till I had given you the protection of a wall. If you are not satisfied, I will produce what was brought to me and give it to you to share out. But if I have acted in your interest, why punish your benefactor? On hearing this, the Tarachaeans expressed their approval, but the people of Tiberias and elsewhere yelled abuse and threats. Then both parties let Josephus alone and turned to each other. He, confident of his new supporters, nearly 40,000 Tarachaeans, proceeded to address the whole throng in bolder terms. He condemned their headstrong behavior in no uncertain fashion, and then declared that with the money in hand, he would fortify Tarachaea and provide equal security for the other cities as well. There would be no lack of funds if only they made up their minds who they were going to fight, instead of letting fly at the man who provided the means. At this, the bulk of the deluded crowd withdrew, though still very angry, but 2,000 men rushed at him, weapons in hand, and though he got back into the house in time, they besieged the doors and shouted threats. In this crisis, Josephus resorted to a second trick. He went up on the roof, silenced them with a gesture, and declared that he had no idea what they wanted, as he could not hear when they all shouted at once. Yeah, that's very clever if it works. But he would do whatever they demanded if they would send in a delegation to talk things over with him quietly. On hearing this, the leading men and the magistrates came in. Josephus then dragged them into the inmost recess of the house, shut the outer door, and flogged them all till he had torn their flesh to ribbons. Meanwhile, the mob waited outside, thinking the delegates were arguing their case at length. You know where we saw this? We saw this in Captain Tom Hanks, the oil rig thing. Not the oil, like the tanker, the cargo ship or whatever. So, that was the, they brought that guy in. They brought the leader of their little tribe in to sit on the aircraft carrier, waiting while things are happening. They sold him some line of bullshit about his elder, about the elders of his tribe or whatever. It was good enough to just keep him calm and not let him know that in reality he's actually under arrest with shoot-to-kill orders, because he's performing a piracy action under maritime law on the high seas. And so then his crew's taken out, Tom Hanks is saved, he's the one guy that survives and goes to prison. But this way it's, right now, like the one guy who got drawn in, he's pretty much been killed. So anyway, so he's been torn to shreds, Okay, demanded the sound of the door. Meanwhile, the mob waited outside. They tell us on the door. But Josephus suddenly flung open the doors and pushed the men out covered with blood, striking such terror into the threatening crowd that they threw down their weapons and fled. This triumph made John more jealous still, and he framed a second plot against Josephus. Feigning sickness, he sent a letter begging his permission to seek a cure by taking the hot baths at Tiberias. Not yet suspecting a plot, Josephus wrote to his representatives in the city to accommodate John and provide everything necessary. John made himself comfortable, and 2 days later got his scheme underway. Deceiving some, bribing others, he strove to induce the citizens to fly at the man who provided the means. At this, bulk of the deluded crowd withdrew, though still very angry, but 2,000 men rushed at him, weapons in hand, and though he got back into the house in time, they besieged the door and shouted threats. In this crisis, Josephus resorted to a second trick. Darn it. Didn't see how that worked. Thought it jumped the other way. So, if I went down to the... No. Down as it was direct against. Nevertheless, he sent his friends to make an no. Wait, am I on the wrong page now? Supposed to be on. No, I'm supposed to be down here. Fled. The triumph made John more jealous still. John provided everything necessary, right? Just even receiving dispatch set off on a swift night march. Okay, I'm sorry. I missed like half a paragraph here. John made himself underway. Deceiving some, bribing others, he strove to induce the citizens to revolt from Josephus. When this came to his ears, Silas, the appointed guardian of the city, reported the plot to his superior. Without a moment's delay, Josephus, on receiving this dispatch, set off on a swift night march, which brought him at dawn to Tiberias, where he was met by the whole population except John. John had little doubt that his visit was directed against him. Nevertheless, he sent one of his friends to make the excuse that he was unwell and confined to bed, and so could not pay his respects. But when Josephus had collected the citizens in the stadium and was trying to tell them about the report he had received, John quietly sent armed men with orders to assassinate him. These men, this I think will do right here, even though it's not a paragraph break, it is a sentence break at the top of the page. So that's perfect. I am going to take the first break of the show. I suppose I'll share this around, finally get around to that. Okay, let me move over here. Okay, which one of these songs am I doing here? Yes. I had to roll with this one. Chevelle released. Did I play this the other day, actually? No, I couldn't have, because it was a day ago and I didn't play. Wait, did I? What did I do yesterday? I don't know if I played this for you. I know I played a few days ago when Chevelle released the Conspiracy Addict song, The Cowards, Part 1. So now they release Cowards Part 2. It's actually called Jim Jones. So this is a song about that cult leader, and I haven't listened to Chevelle in a long time, and I've always liked Chevelle for what they do in their lane of the scene.
Oh
All right, there we go. Jim Jones by Chevelle. All, like a 5-minute song and not one reference to Kool-Aid. Not one reference. Wild. It's just like that was a deliberate decision. Like, do we want to use like the Kool-Aid allegory? Be like, no, that's what they'll be expecting. Anyway, so we're making excellent time. Let's no. All right, let's move forward. All right. These men drew their swords, but the people saw what was coming and gave a shout. Hearing the noise, Josephus swung round and seeing the barrel steel within inches of his throat, took a flying leap onto the beach. While addressing the people, he had been standing on a mound 9 feet high, and jumping into a boat moored nearby with 2 members of his bodyguard, made a dash for the middle of the lake. His soldiers instantly seized their weapons and charged the conspirators. Then Josephus, fearing that if civil war broke out through the jealousy of a few, the city would be ruined, sent a message to his men that they were only to see to their own safety and neither kill anybody nor bring the guilty to trial. In obedience to this injunction, the soldiers refrained from action, but the people of the neighborhood, when they learnt of the plot and of the person responsible, massed together to deal with John. He, however, slipped away in time and fled to Gischala, his hometown. From every city in Galilee, the people streamed to the support of Josephus, till the number swelled to thousands and thousands of armed men, who proclaimed that they had come to settle accounts with John, the enemy of the nation. They would burn him alive and burn any city that received him. Josephus expressed his appreciation of their loyalty, but restrained their fury, choosing to outwit his enemies rather than to kill them. He found out the names of those in every city who had revolted with John, their fellow citizens being delighted to give the information, and made a public announcement that anyone who failed to sever connection with an X with John in the next 5 days. I wonder how they made a typo like that. The X. You know, X and C are right next to each other on a typewriter. That's how they did it. But what's really funny is that it works anyway. The connection with John in the next 5 days would have his property seized and his house burnt together with his family. The immediate result was that 3,000 deserted John, came to Josephus and threw down their weapons at his feet, while with the rest, about 2,000 Syrian outlaws. John again took refuge in secret plots, abandoning open hostilities. He sent messengers to Jerusalem by stealth to allege that Josephus was growing too powerful, and to say that he might at any moment set himself up as dictator in the capital itself if his attempt was not forestalled. Oops. Here we go. Middle, okay. It's not forestalled. Oh, I see what's going on here. See, I have to move my thing up because I can't read everything. Okay. Deserted John. Right? Forestalled. There we go. There we are. If I scroll the mouse ever so slightly, it just jumps the whole page, and it's not working properly to be in continuous motion. I don't know why. What's this? One sec. Okay. The people were prepared for this story and took no notice. But leading citizens, including some of the magistrates, were moved by jealousy to send money secretly to John so that he could raise a force of mercenaries and make war on Josephus. They further issued a decree on their own authority, recalling him from his command. But as they doubted its validity, they dispatched 2,500 armed men with 4 distinguished citizens, Josdrus, son of Namucus, Ananias, son of Zadok, Simon and Jude, sons of Jonathan, all gifted speakers in order to deprive Josephus of popular support. If he came quickly, they were to let him give an account of himself. If he insisted on remaining, they must treat him as an enemy. Josephus had been warned by his friends that an army was on the way, but the reason was not explained, as his enemies had taken their decision in secret. The result was that he took no countermeasures, and 4 towns promptly went over to the other side: Sepphoris, Gamala, Gishala, and Tiberias. Let's see what the footnote on Gamala is. Other readings are Gadara and Gabara. Interesting. All right, so there's discrepancies in the spelling of the name of this place. But he quickly recovered these without the use of force, and then, by stratagems, got the 4 commanders into his hands and sent them back with the most efficient of their soldiers to Jerusalem. They met with a most hostile reception from the people who would have killed them and those who had sent them out, had they not immediately fled. From that time on, John was kept within the walls of Gishala by fear of Josephus. A few days later, Tiberius again revolted. The citizens having called in King Agrippa, Agrippa failed to arrive on the date fixed, but a few Roman cavalry turned up unexpectedly that very day, and the gates were shut against Josephus. He was at Tarichaea, where he was promptly informed of this revolt, but he had sent out all his soldiers in search of food, and could neither take the field alone against the rebels, nor stay where he was, for fear that his delay might enable the royal troops to slip into the city before him. Furthermore, he would be unable to make any move on the next day, owing to the Sabbath restrictions. However, he thought of a ruse to circumvent the rebels. He ordered the gates of Tarichaea to be shut to prevent any warning of his intentions from reaching those he was planning to attack. Then he collected all the boats there were on the lake, 230, with not more than 4 sailors in each, and made at full speed for Tiberias. He kept far enough from the city to make clear vision impossible, ordering the vessels to ride in deep water unmanned, while he himself, with only 7 guards, unarmed. So all MSS, perhaps a mistake for armed. I don't know what that means, but okay. Went near enough to be seen. On sighting him from the walls, his opponents, who had not ceased to vilify him, were so amazed that they assumed that all the craft were packed with armed men, flung down their weapons, and waving oil branches, begged him to spare the city. Josephus gave vent to threats and reproaches. First, after taking up arms against Rome, they were dissipating their strength beforehand in civil strife, and so playing into the enemy's hands. Secondly, they were striving to get rid of their own bulwark against destruction, and were not ashamed to close their city to the architect of its defenses. Nevertheless, he declared his willingness to receive a delegation that would offer an apology and cooperate in making the city secure. 10 citizens at once came down, the most important men in Tiberias. These he took on board one of the vessels and carried out to sea. 50 others, leading members of the Senate, he ordered to come forward, on the ground that he wished to obtain a pledge from them. Then, by inventing one pretext after another, he called out group after group as if to arrange terms. As the boats were filled, he ordered the masters to make with all speed for Tarichaea, and to clap the men into prison. In this way, the whole Senate, 600 strong, and about 2,000 private citizens, were arrested and conveyed in boats to Tarichaea. The remainder shouted that the real author of the revolt was one Clytus, and urged Josephus to vent his wrath on him. Josephus was anxious to put no one to death, so he ordered Levi, one of his guards, to step ashore and cut off Clytus' hands. The soldiers, taking fright, refused to go alone into the hostile crowd. At this, Josephus boiled with rage and was on the point of jumping overboard to carry out the sentence himself, when Clytus, watching from the beach, besought him to leave him one of his hands. Josephus agreed on condition that he cut off the other himself, whereupon Clytus drew his sword with his right hand and cut off his left. So completely had Josephus terrified him. Thus, with unmanned boat and 7 guards, the whole population was made prisoner, and Tiberias brought back to its allegiance. But a few days later, Josephus found that the city had revolted again in conjunction with Sepphoris, so he handed it over to the soldiers to pillage. However, he collected all the plunder and gave it back to the townspeople. He did the same at Sepphoris, For he subdued that town as well and decided to give the citizens a sharp lesson by pillaging it, and then by giving back their possessions to recover their goodwill. Basically, that just makes this hardcore statement. It's just like it's like the mob, right? It's like the mob announcing their protection. You see this? You can't defend yourself from me. But here, have your things back because I don't really care, but you are going to pay me for protection now. And that's a psychologically wiser move. It's a question of how much you are really going to hate this way of life. In Galilee, all was now quiet and abandoning internal dissension. The people turned to preparations for war with Rome. In Jerusalem, Ananias, the high priest, and all the leading men who did not favor Rome were repairing the walls and piling up munitions. All over the city, they were forging missiles and suits of armor. Most of the young men were receiving haphazard training, and there was tumult everywhere. Among the more stable, however, there was utter dejection. Excuse me. Oh. Oh. Okay. Other dejection. Thank you. Many saw only too well the approaching calamity and openly lamented. There were omens too, which to the peace lovers portended disaster, but for which those who had lit the fires of war could easily invent a happy interpretation. In fact, the whole condition of the city before the arrival of the Romans proclaimed the coming destruction of Ananias, indeed nourished the hope that if he gradually abandoned the preparations for war, he would incline the insurgents and the crazy zealots to take a wiser course. But he yielded to their violence, and in a later chapter, chapter 15 it says, his tragic end will be related. Finally, in the toparchy of Acrabatine, Simon, son of Gaiorus, collected a large band of revolutionaries and gave himself up to pillage. He not only looted the house of the rich, he ill-used them personally, and it was evident from the start that his aim was despotism. When a force was sent against him by Ananias and the magistrates, he fled with his followers to the bandits at Masada, and there till the death of Ananias and his other enemies he remained, joining in the pillage Idumea and forcing the authorities there in view of the number murdered and the constant raids to muster an army and garrison the villages. So much for events in Idumea. So hold on a second. Did I make it to... Coming of Vespasian and Titus. Oh, okay. There we are. I should have picked the Vespasia song. And it's only 8:30? How did I get... What? How is it 8... Okay, 179. Did I really just... Oh, I miscounted. I thought it was 20 pages. It was only... Wow, this is only 9 pages. Oh, this is actually a short session then. Ha! That's funny. So I only had to play 2 songs. Oh, that's something. That's hysterical. Okay, that's fine by me. Try to keep these things chapterized. So that's good. We're going to do Vespasia next. And even though it's out of order, I think, chronologically, that same band has a Vespasia song. Because like I said, this is like the 4 emperors time situation, right? So the Jewish war is happening at the same time that Rome is actually, having its own effing problems, yet Rome is still holding space here, which probably means that there was a coherent infrastructure in Rome, uh, um, despite the palace intrigue occurring at the top. All right, give me a second. I promised Pasta Spliff that I would bring Locke out and show him off for the show. So I'm going to go grab my dragon for a minute. Be right back. All right. And here we are. The big guy is here. I had him down here earlier, too, is what's funny, and then I brought him up when I had to leave the house. Ugh. Covering a little bit of schmutz. There he goes. Yeah, he's chilling. He's chilling. Every once in a while, I get a chance to get the living space a little bit more straightened out, and I try to make it a little bit more accommodating for him, so that way he's more and more comfortable. I think he's pretty comfortable in the setup the way we got it. He seems pretty happy all the time, for the most part. He can always have an issue. He can always get a little irky, and then you got to watch out, because he might strike, but he ain't gonna strike. I know when his posture goes up. Just one time he caught me off guard because I was doing something. But anyway, so this is me and Locke. We're having a good time. I will save that last song for the next show. Maybe get the next show going next time. All right. I will catch you guys later.